that will be like a lightning bolt in your head. Like you'll know when you hit it because you'll turn to me and say, Lee, suddenly like it all became clear. It's like Neo when he sees the code in the Matrix, right?
How? He is the one.
I want to dive back into why validation matters, which I'm sure if you guys have been joining some of these calls for a while now, like this is one of the things that I see most of you struggling with is your business isn't growing as fast as it could be because there's wonky or shaky validation foundations that we've built our assumptions on. And that therefore our content isn't resonating, our lead magnets aren't working as well as they could be. We're not getting inbound inquiries. We're not getting invited to speak about this problem in front of other people's groups. If you're facing those kind of problems, I would say it's because your validation is a little bit more shaky than we should be building our house on top of, right? These foundations. I want to talk to you about the limitations of remote validation because for some reason, entrepreneurs want to do everything they possibly can to stay as far away from their customers as they can, especially those of you who are building tech products, because I think we think about scale and we think as soon as I have to get close and do things manually with people in terms of conversations or, research, etc., that doesn't scale very well. And that feels like something I should ignore. And I want to say to you, like, there's limitations, there's a smarter way. And if we commit to getting closer to our customers, it's an incredibly easy, unfair advantage that you can build for your company. This is also how you reduce the cost of you creating new products that resonate deeply with the people you're trying to solve problems for. I'm going to share with you a new idea that I'm working on as well, called the Entrepreneur's Journey, which I think you are all in various stages of. And I think it's something that we go round and round again and again on as well. And then I'm going to, once we've framed all that, start to talk to you about how you attract your early adopters. Like, what are your options for doing that? What's the sane and sensible way to do that? And what kind of strategies can you think about? There was someone in the group talking about having launched, they're getting some traction, but they're not getting enough traction. I think this will answer that question of some strategies they could implement to really kick the growth engine up a gear in their business. Okay, hopefully that sounds good, guys. So let's dive in. Why does validation matter? You have all seen me roll out the statistic multiple times, but it really does blow my mind every time I see it. 42% of your competitors' businesses will fail because they make products the market doesn't want or need. They make things no one wants to pay for. They are existing in this world of they think it's a great idea, and they're either madly trying to dash around and find a customer who aligns with their view that, yeah, this is 100% something that I would pay for, or they are fighting with their ego, whether they like to admit it or not. They're fighting with their ego and battling this idea of, this is what I really find special. This is what I've really built my hopes and dreams on. And if I go and ask people about this and I seek that truthful feedback, they might kind of say it's rubbish. They might say it's a bad idea. And if they do that, it's going to really hurt my feelings. It's going to make me feel like a failure. And so they exist in this bubble of desperately trying to get people to pay them for whatever it is that they've created and struggling in this uphill battle until they run out of money, right? And I was told something by one of my sales mentors, like 9 years ago at this point. And I think a lot of us are doing this, right? And he said, he was challenging me on a sale that I was telling him 100%, I'd absolutely sold this product. There's no way the customer was going to come back and renege on that agreement. And I should be allowed to put that deal on the board because, yeah, they hadn't signed the contract yet, but they'd said yes multiple times. And he said this to me. He said, do you know what assuming does? Assuming makes an arse out of you and me, which is to say, every time you have unvalidated assumptions within whatever you are doing, you build more and more logic and reason on top of that shaky assumption. And eventually that tower is going to come crashing down. And in this case, we would have looked really silly because I'd have had to go up in front of probably about 50 different sales executives and wipe that. What I really wanted to do was put this big, fat, juicy sales figure on a sales board that was up in front of the whole office. I was really excited to do that. It's like, it's going to make you and me look like an arse when you have to go up there and wipe that number off, because look how many assumptions is in your sales process at the minute. It turns out he was right. That customer did renege on the deal and never signed the contract. And it was because I had assumptions in that deal-making process. And I think if you guys are struggling with the growth of your business right now, there is more assumptions in why you think someone should buy your product, why they are suffering from whatever problem you're trying to solve, than you maybe care to admit. And if we just committed to go and validating those assumptions and making sure they're not assumptions, they're facts, they're repeated stories and trends that we hear time and time again, we could build lead magnets, we could build marketing copy or content or whatever kind of attention grabbing mechanism you want to add into your business so you can get more customers. We could build those on some more solid foundations that would work, right? And this is how you're going to reduce the cost of validating the product ideas that you have. Don't invest tens of thousands of pounds or months of your time in creating products that you haven't found buyers for before you build them. I had to stop myself doing this the other day. Someone said to me, hey, you should create a course around this idea that I had. It's like, yeah, I could 100% spend 3 months doing this. That could be cool. And I thought to myself, actually, does anyone even want this course? And I offered a wait list to a couple of people on this piece of content. No one wanted it. Thank God I only spent the time to build a wait list, which took me all of 30 minutes. Absolutely no one that I spoke to wanted that course. So I could have wasted 3 months of my time and how much money that would have cost me. Instead, we went to validate those assumptions before creating anything, and it saved us a ton of time and effort. Okay, so the reason you want to destroy those assumptions and do this validation, the reason this is important is because many of you are in a race against the clock, whether you realize it or not. Most of you do not have unlimited money that you can keep pouring into a business that is currently losing money. Most of you that are launching tech products have had to beg, borrow, steal, whatever, do the whole family and fools round of investment to get this thing off the ground. And actually, you don't have unlimited time working on it. It's like there's a founder that I was speaking with a few weeks ago who was saying, I think this will work, but I've only got 3 more months of this until I get divorced, essentially, because this is destroying my family, because it's all consuming and we're burning for our savings at such an incredible rate. So there is probably a clock you are racing against. And the way you win this race is by destroying those assumptions so you can create a product that cuts through the noise. And when the people who you've built that product for see it, they go, oh my God, I need it. How do I pay you for it? So how do you do that? So what we're going to do that is not do remote validation. I want to talk to you about the limitations of not getting close to your customers. Most entrepreneurs, and I really don't know why this is the case. I think it might be the ego thing that I touched on earlier. Most entrepreneurs are trying to build machines and validation mechanisms that we can do at a distance with little to no effort, which conversely usually costs us more in money to do, right? So entrepreneurs say to me, oh, I validated my idea. I did a survey. That's not validation, right? A survey validates trends you've already found. Or they say, yeah, I'm going to actually not speak to anyone. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to launch an advertising campaign to a web page, and then I'm going to track signups. And if I get signups, that's validation. Well, sometimes, yes. But I was speaking with 2 really clever young founders, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, who'd done just this. They launched an advertising campaign. They got loads of people to sign up to there's like a web metrics tracking platform, like akin to Hotjar, something like that. They had loads of signups. They're like, cool, let's build this thing. They paid for it. They got it built. And then all of those people who signed up logged in once and then disappeared. And when we looked at their landing page, I was like, guys, this landing page talks about a completely different product than what you've actually built. And so I think you've actually validated a completely different idea. And so these are the pitfalls of doing this validation at distance. I think about it like this. If I was to say, I'm going to put you in a room and blindfold you, and I'm going to take a couple of shots on like a snooker table, right? I'm going to say to you, I'll take the blindfold off, and I'm going to say, you need to tell me where those balls were before I've taken those last 3 shots. You would have no chance in hell of telling me where those balls come from. All you see is a snapshot in time of where those balls are right now. And so when you do a survey, all you kind of getting information on is what that person's thinking about right now. But you maybe don't even know the right questions to ask at this point. When you get into a conversation with your customers, when you get really close to your customers, you are afforded the opportunity to watch the entire game of pool play out. You know where the balls came from. You kind of know the sequence of events that happen for these balls to be in this position and where they are right now. And so we want to remove the blindfold, right? And by removing the blindfold and not trying to do validation at a distance, instead committing to get close to our customers, you are afforded the opportunity to understand these little trigger points. Most of your competitors are focused on this kind of, in this graph, let's say like it's the moment of highest pain, right? Where someone makes a buying decision for that product. Most of your competitors are focused on that moment. They're fighting over the SEO keywords that are around that. They are creating advertisements for people who are ready to buy, and all of their marketing, etc., speaks to people in that moment. But actually, a tiny fraction of your market ever exists in that moment of being ready to buy at any one time. It's a really difficult competition place to be. If you do great validation, you're going to start to uncover these trigger points that send them on this journey in the first place at all. Where what happened 6 months ago before they got to the point of buying this product? What happened when they started to become slightly aware of the problem that they might be facing? What were they feeling? What were the external pressures that was going on in their lives at that point? And it's those trigger points which are absolute gold dust for you and your business. Those trigger points are really powerful pieces of content you can create, or they are really incredible lead magnets that you can start to add into your business so that you can start to attract customers to you rather than having to do all of this kind of like bare knuckle boxing with all of your competitors around the moment of the sale where everyone else is focusing. And, you know, even in very mature markets with very big companies inside them, I have found that the understanding of the buying journey is fuzzy and weak. And in fact, actually, some of your most mature competition probably has the fuzziest understanding of the buying journey, because everyone who actually learned the hard lessons around what this buying journey is probably left the company at this point, and everyone's just saying, don't touch it, because if we break it, we don't really know how to fix it. Don't touch the pipeline. So get close to your customers, have these deep dive research conversations. You know, we've done some other calls around how you actually host these conversations, how you approach people to get them into these conversations. But what you're looking for is these trigger points. You're looking for the sequence of events that leads up to the need of your product. And if you find it, you have found something you can build a 7, 8 figure business on easily, right? And if you are struggling to get traction, it's because you don't understand the trigger points. It's because you are relying on word of mouth referrals, which is a great, marketing tool. I love word of mouth referrals, but it doesn't like, it doesn't feel like you are in control of the own growth of your business when all you have is word of mouth and referrals. So this is my challenge to you, is whoever gets closest in a market, whoever gets closest to the customer wins. I really believe this. Whoever understands that buying process, those trigger points, the external pressures, the thoughts, feelings, hopes, wants, and dreams of their customers the best, wins, because you have an incredible ability to spend less validating your ideas and create products that work out of the gate more often than not, because you really get who you're creating these products for or this content for. Listen to a Gary Vee video this morning, which randomly popped up in my feed, and he was talking about the thing that surprises him most about the world of marketing is how little attention is paid to, yeah, we could create this piece of marketing, but would our customers actually like it or not? Would they enjoy consuming this piece of marketing? Or are we just focused on ourselves and getting sales? And we've talked about this idea of, are you running a selfish business before? So don't be selfish, get close to your customers, understand those trigger points. And the way that you do that is through those research conversations. It's not by trying to do a survey. It's not by trying to run an advertising campaign and see who clicks on what, because those things only show you the snapshot in time after the buying process happened. And you're not going to have a deep enough understanding of the sequence of events. You're going to rob yourself of the golden opportunity of getting close to your customers if you do that. Okay, so let's get into this entrepreneur's journey. This is a new idea that I've got. I'd love some feedback on it, whether this is interesting to you guys or not, because I think we might develop this out a little bit further. This might be hard for you to see in terms of the writing, because there's a lot to it. So I might share this as a post in the group if it is interesting to you. I think we are all, as entrepreneurs, as founders, we're all on this journey. There is a point, we exist up here in the top section, in the known, right? We're going about our daily lives. Hopefully everything's pretty good. And suddenly something triggers us where we decide, or we discover something, we see a gap in the market, we see a problem that maybe isn't being solved, or we experience a frustration within our own lives. And it sends us on this journey of discovery, hopefully, where we try to create something to solve that problem. And we get pulled into this validation journey, like the wilderness, right? Where we meet some customers or a group of people who also suffer from this problem. And in our interactions with them, they start to share details of their pain, of their frustrations with us. And it drags us further and further into this confusing mess, essentially, of everyone is telling us slightly different things. Sometimes people want X, sometimes people want Y. This person would pay for it. These people saying they would never pay for it. And your head becomes overloaded with confusion at this point. But there is a critical moment. If you keep going through this validation journey, you keep speaking with people, you get more and more diverse opinions about this problem, and you see more and more context in which this problem occurs, you can reach this moment of revelation, which is right down here in the bottom. When you have this moment of revelation, you will not be able to help yourself but create a product that resonates deeply with all of those people that you've been on this validation journey with. I told you the story last week about how I scaled that EdTech product up to 2 million in ARR. That was because I had the lightning bolt of revelation when I was stuck with those customers for a week who were doing nothing but moaning at me about this problem that was happening nationwide. And then we validated that problem with them, and we found out that this problem was playing out time and time again. And as soon as I had that revelation, I couldn't help but create a solution to it. The conviction levels I had in what I needed to do, why I needed to do it, exactly how we needed to speak about it to get other people to see the same revolution was sky high. And this journey of like rapid scale was unlocked because of that revelation. So if you're confused about why your customers would buy your service, if you're confused about how much they would pay or the reasons they even come to you in the first place, you're in the middle of this, the right-hand side of this validation journey. What actually is required for you to move out of it is more conversations, finding more mentors in the guise of customers who are going to show you a little bit more about their life, their problems and their context, right? Until you get to the moment of revelation. And it will be like a lightning bolt in your brain. You will get to a point where you go, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I can't believe I've been struggling on this problem for so long, because the solution to this is so obvious. Once you have that revolutionary moment, you're going to transform your product based on that understanding. You're going to start speaking about what you do in a very different way. You're going to add things into your product that you maybe wouldn't have considered before, and it will allow you to explore innovation in a way that almost certainly your competitors are not thinking about, because your understanding of the problem space will be so great that you can come up with very out of the box and creative ways to solve the problem for these people you've been on this journey with. And then you get to this top left point, number 8, the return and reflection. And this is where validation at scale can start to happen. Until you've gone through this revelation, until you've gone through this journey of validation, your chances of validating your idea at scale, your chances of having a sense that your business is picking up speed and growing faster and faster and faster is really slim. It's almost like luck at that point. You might stumble upon something in a way to talk about it that resonates fine, but most people don't experience that. They go through 100 punches in the faces, banging their head up against this wall and trying to solve this problem, and they need to build that understanding. Once you get that opportunity to get back into the known, you can then start to communicate what you have found, the hard-won truths about this problem, about these people's blockers of progress in their lives. You can start to communicate that back out. And this is where we start to add scale into the business. This is where we start to add, where you start to feel a sense of your business is kind of getting a bit of a life of its own, where people are coming to you, you're getting referrals from your clients, you're being asked to talk about this problem in front of different groups. Your opinion on this problem is starting to be valued because you've gone through the wilderness of not knowing and really falling in love with this problem to a point that you've had this revelation. It's like a magic moment to get to. Okay, so that is a little bit about, I think, the journey you are all on, and you're all going to be in different stages of that journey at this point in time. I know we are here at the Minimal Viable Launch. We've been in the wilderness for a long, long time. Like real talk for a second. We were really frustrated. We build software products for people, right? We help them launch software products, and we kept finding people too late in the buying cycle. If I go back to a couple of slides, right? We kept finding people not even at that moment of need where they were buying. It was like long after. And I just kept saying to my team, like, why do we keep finding people that's already spent all of their money on building something? And why isn't that us? And it took a long, hard look in the mirror to admit that even though I talk about validation, research, and all of these things all of the time to I'm blue in the face, what do you think I didn't do in my business? I didn't go and do the research with people who were building and paying for MVPs to get built. So I didn't understand the trigger points. And because I didn't understand the trigger points, our business was always left outside in the cold, not making sales, struggling, and really kind of getting into a kind of hairy, desperate situation in the back end of last year, where I was thinking, we might go out of business here because we don't understand enough about our customers. And it took a effort of going and doing research and a big kind of spoonful of humble pie for me to admit that and then go on this journey of, okay, let me go speak to some people who have bought this. Oh, this is what they were thinking. This is what they were feeling. How about if we did this? What about this lead magnet? Why don't I write this book, etc., etc. So if you're feeling like that, the antidote is go and understand the trigger points. So you have that moment of revelation. You do the hard work that most people are refusing to do, that 42% of your competitors will never do and will go out of business because they refuse to do it. You have that revelation, you have the high conviction, you have the stories of people's pain and their problems. You can speak about what you do in a way that resonates now. What do you do with that? This is where we now move into the, like what we would call like traction, or like finding true product market fit. You're in this stage now. You've validated, you've probably launched something at this point, and now it's time to start attracting your early adopters. So most people get this wrong because then they immediately try and go out and do one-to-one sales with everyone who fits their buyer persona, which can work. Like, don't get me wrong, I've worked in a business that did cold calls all day long. Like, if you just hammer thousands of people with spam telephone calls all day long, like you'll find some people who are just in that moment of need to buy your product and you'll make sales. And I had a cold call this morning actually, and I was thinking while this person was giving me their best pitch that I was like, I hate this. It's such a terrible way of doing business because this person's probably going to have to do 100 dials today and is going to really piss quite a lot of people off in the process of doing it. Why haven't they understood my trigger points for this product and drawn me in that way, which I think is a much more sane and sensible way to do it. So don't immediately run out. Don't become that person on LinkedIn who has a new product and is messaging people one-to-one in the DMs being like, try my thing, try my thing, try my thing. Like, connect, immediately sell to me. Oh, I hate that so much. That gets you straight on my like remove connection list and probably blocked, because it's a really selfish place to be. And I get why people get there. You spent all of this money, you're in this race against the clock, and you're desperate to make sales. But that desperation reeks. And like, no one wants to date a desperate person. It's the same thing as no one wants to do business with someone who's desperate to do business with you, because it starts to make you question the value of their thing. You go, well, if it was that good, surely people would be going to them and they'd be inundated with referrals and invitations to talk about this product left, right, and center. If you're really desperate for me to buy it, maybe it's not that good, right? So make sure you're not giving off this air of desperation, which is difficult at times. And the way you do that, the way you don't seem desperate, is this idea. I know you all laugh at me so much because I bring up his name so often, but Daniel Priestley just says this so well, which is seeking signals, not sales. Seeking indications of interest in whatever problem you have found and the solutions to it that you have validated, right? If you can just get people to raise their hands and say, yeah, I'm kind of interested in this thing. I want to hear you speak about it, or I want to be in a group about that. I want to attend an event or a workshop or something like that. This is a really nice signal of validation at scale. It's much more easy on your time commitment than trying to do this one-to-one. And it's going to have a lot more success. And yeah, Pippa, I think slowing down when you're feeling that desperation is really key, because you start to try and go for those quick wins. It feels like offering out your service at a, cutthroat rate, one-to-one in the DMs with everyone you know is going to solve your problem. And you might get some buyers, don't get me wrong. You really might generate some cash doing that. You're going to put an awful lot of people off though. And there's probably a more sane and sensible way to do this. So you seek these signals. You're just looking to get people to raise their hand so that they can say, I'm kind of interested in what you're doing here. I'm kind of interested in the knowledge that you've worked so hard to win in this entrepreneur's journey that you've been on, right? So there's two routes, at least in my thinking today, there's two routes that I can see for you to validate your offer at scale. And this is where I want you to concentrate your time and effort on, is one of these two things. You either get to borrow validation of scale, or if I jump ahead slightly, you get to build it, right? There's two routes. If you are borrowing, it's much faster because other people have already done the hard work for you. It's probably going to show you results more quickly. So I think if most of you are really feeling the pressure of that race against the clock of, oh my God, I need to increase my sales very quickly, trying to build something takes a long time. Building a community or an audience of people who want to hear about the thing you do takes a long time. That's a 6 to 12 month game. It's a very good game to play because once you've built it, you own an incredible resource for your business that you will be able to monetize time and time and time and time again. But if you're feeling really desperate right now, focusing all of your efforts on building that community and audience is a tough place to be. It's a really tough place to be because you're going to want to make that go faster than it's going to go. And you're going to get impatient. And we talked about impatience in your business a couple of weeks ago. It sucks when you're there because you're trying to force things. The more you try to force things, the less they work. And this frustration cycle repeats and repeats. So you can borrow these audiences, right? Someone posted in the group, they built an app for car enthusiasts, right? And they were getting interest. They were getting people coming onto the platform and then giving word of mouth referrals, but it wasn't enough to get them the scale that they needed to justify continuing on investing into that idea. And I think if you're in that stage, if you need to grow faster, this is where we start to say, well, who has the attention of your audience, of those people that are suffering from the problem that you've discovered, who haven't yet hit those major trigger points, but maybe they're feeling something in the back of their mind of like, oh, this is kind of frustrating. I kind of wish I had this solved for me. Who has the attention of these audiences? And what can you offer the people who have built these little closed ecosystems of attention, these little mini marketplaces of attention? What can you offer them with your deep found, hard-won knowledge and experience of this validation you've done that would allow them to say, hey, do you know what? I'm going to allow you to borrow the attention of my audience. I want you to come and speak to this group about what you've found or the problem that you're solving for them, because I think they have this problem as well. So this might look like giving talks to other people's groups, adding a new and interesting perspective to what they talk about all the time. It might be finding specialized interest groups. I don't want to say infiltrating because it kind of has the wrong connotation to it, but getting in there and adding value to that group where possible. An example of this is I'm in a community at the moment where people were talking about AI and how they could use that. And I just so happened to have just done a talk on adding AI into your business and didn't try to sell them anything, but I put that in there and said, you might find this useful. I've been on this validation journey myself and solved this problem. Here's how you could think about it. From that one video that I just sent in, I think I've got 4 sales conversations off the back of that, right? I haven't tried to sell anything. People then raise their hand and say, hey, you've been on this journey. You've got the hard-won information I need. Let me try and buy that from you because I need to shortcut my progress, right? So you can get involved in those groups and you can be the guide because you've done the hard work of validating the problem and understanding it more deeply than others. You could offer that perspective to podcasts, let's say, and say, hey, look, I think your audience needs to hear about what I found here. I think your audience are hitting these mini trigger points, and I think this is how they could avoid the problem or solve the problem. You can attend those events. Once you have a deep understanding of who your customers are, and this is why validation is so crucial, when you really understand who your customers are, you know where they hang out, you know what events they're interested in, you know what topics are like a flame to a moth for them, and you just go and appear in those areas with that already have your customers' attention. And if you're there and you're speaking about what you found, they will give you your attention and they'll give you that signal of interest. And then you bring them down your buying, your sales funnel, right? So if you're building, this is a longer term game. And I think it's a worthwhile game to play. I'm really frustrated with myself because I wanted to build a YouTube channel and a community probably about a year and a half ago. I was really interested in doing this. And I was saying, if I could just like help people and get them to ask me questions, like I think good things will happen. And I was warned off of it at the time as with someone saying, hey, this is going to be a lot of work. You don't have time for that right now. And so I put that idea to one side. I kick myself every day. I'm like, what would happen if I was building this group like a year and a half ago? Where would we be now? What would I be doing now? And so I delayed it. So I'm not saying delay building anything from the get-go. It's just that this might not be the right strategy for you right now because this is a 6, 12, 2-year journey. So it's easier to borrow and then take those people whose attention you borrow and plonk them into your own build audience, so the audience you're building, right? So build that audience. And when you've built it, when you've built your closed loop community, this might be like a discussion group. It might be a WhatsApp group. I have seen tech businesses build Discord communities that have been wildly successful for them, where they say, hey, we're building this product that kind of solves this problem. If you have this problem, in fact, Jordan in the group would be, if you're interested in building a discussion community around your product, would be a very interesting person for you all to talk to because he's building this productivity app for people with ADHD, right? Solving a really interesting problem. He starts talking about that in other communities, borrowing their attention, but he builds a Discord channel. And the Discord channel is all about people who suffer from ADHD and productivity problems, right? He starts getting hundreds of people into this Discord channel and they're demanding the product for him. They're like, when are you launching this, Jordan? He's like, I've never launched a product before. It's taken a little longer than I thought, but they're demanding this thing from him because he's understood a problem very deeply. He went on that journey of validation. He borrowed the audience and then he transplanted that interest into his own little ecosystem. And I think it's a really smart way to go. And that is going to pay dividends for that product. It's got him hundreds of early adopters, in their initial phases of their beta, right? And I've seen other companies do that. I've seen a company do this so successfully that in their Discord channel, they had limited access to the beta. You had to get a code, and every account sign up only had one code that they could give to someone else. I saw people having bidding wars for hundreds of pounds of value, right? Of cash being transferred to say, I will buy the invite code off of someone. And I was saying to this company, like, guys, you got to release this to the open. Like, people are basically scalping access to your beta. Why aren't you earning that money? It's kind of crazy. So then you can build this audience. In terms of validating your ideas for less, the way I want to summarize this for you is get close to the customer and do it through conversations because it costs you nothing other than time most of the time. It allows you to see what's actually going on and it's going to allow you to discover these trigger points. When you discover the trigger points and you get all the way through this entrepreneur journey to having the moment of clarity that will be like a lightning bolt in your head, like you'll know when you hit it because you'll turn to me and say, Lee, suddenly like it all became clear. I saw the lay of the land before me. It's like Neo when he sees the code in the Matrix, right?
How? He is the one.
He's like, oh my God, finally it all makes sense. There is a moment of critical mass that will happen in your head where the switch will flip and you just go, oh my God, this is it. This is what we need to try and validate now at scale. You'll come back out the other side. And once you have that, you have a powerful message. And when you have a powerful message, you have the keys to be able to borrow other people's audiences. You borrow their audiences and you ask them to raise their hand and you plop them into a community, a discussion group, a wait list, whatever it is, a scorecard, something like that, that allows them to indicate interest in what you do. And then you go and start speaking to them about your product and making the sales that way. It's a really nice buyer journey. it will stop you wasting years of your life building something no one wants if you take that sequence of events. Again, so you said, I've had 3 this week. Very interesting to hear my ICP's perspective. What's been like, has anything surprised you about those conversations?
Well, for those who don't know, like I create images for architects, but just like from a collaboration perspective, as in like I try to ask questions like, why do you outsource to a visualization company? And just like getting those answers were like very eye-opening because it's were the things that I thought.
What were they? Why did they outsource?
Well, some companies have like an in-house visualization team, and sometimes they're like so stuffed with work that they like outsource. One reason was like, for example, if they have like, I'm from Belgium, if they have like a Belgium project, I understand Belgian culture.
Mm-hmm.
So they would come to me. So that was like one reason. That was like
That's a very interesting. See, and now if you can go and validate that and find the pattern, right? You're in the middle of that validation journey. If you have conversations with 10 companies and they all say the same thing, like it gets to the point where you know how the conversation will go. You're like, I'm going to ask this question. And you use those 5 key killer words that we talked about the other week. If they say this thing, like we're onto something here. Once you have that, you know you have the trigger point. Like those are interesting trigger points. Who like they have overcapacity, and how do you make partnerships that would allow you to pour that overcapacity into your company? What does that service look like? What are the terms of the agreement? Can they scale you up and scale you down so there's no commitment, et cetera, et cetera? You're falling in love with their problem and being very empathetic about their needs. And that's going to allow you to innovate in your business in ways that when you're thinking me, sale, you're never going to think of. Super cool. I would love to hear once you reach 10 or 15 of those conversations, Jens, like what happens?
One interesting point that happened, just like me asking them those questions, like at the end of the conversations was like, oh, this is interesting. You're such an interesting guy. Please send me your portfolio. Well, that wasn't the intention at all.
Yes. We, in our process of the minimal viable launch, when we launch products for people, we say, hey, we're not going to build your MVP. We're going to build a prototype. So it's like a thing that sucks. This thing is awful, but it's going to allow us to do one thing. It's going to allow us to kind of be a bit of we're going to use that as a bit of a Trojan horse. We're going to pitch ourselves as doing research, and we're going to pitch ourselves as saying, hey, your opinion on this subject is really valued by us. Would you like to share your opinion? Hint, everyone loves sharing their opinion on stuff because their opinion they think is pretty good. So you have this Trojan horse, you have these conversations, and it allows you to spend 20, 30, 60 minutes with someone in a non-salesy way where you're asking very good probing questions about their favorite subject, which happens to be themselves. It's magnetic. It's almost hard not to buy, like, especially if you hit on a real problem. I've had this so many times when we've done research calls where people get to the point and they say in the call, how do I find out more about this thing you're building? Where do I sign up? Where do I give you my information so that when you launch this, I can buy it? Right? That's when you're in this burning hair problem. We had it with Game Planner, with these coaches that we were doing the research with. 3 out of the 5 were like, when is this out, and how much is it going to cost me because I need it? Well, that gives you an incredible amount of conviction to go and build this thing. So I love that, Jens, and please keep having those conversations. I think it's a great way to sell because no one's guards up. No one's even expected to be sold to. And great sales is just asking great questions, which is basically all research is. Okay, guys, has anyone got any other questions around validating their offers, how they might get more traction through this kind of idea of attracting validation at scale, discussion groups, or anything else you're suffering from within your business?
So Lee, how much validation do you need? Like how many people do you need putting up your hands before you say, okay, I'm going to go away and create this thing or build this thing?
So in usability testing, when I would do research on a particular feature of a service, I would at least test with 5. And the reason we would test with 5 is because I need to, like, sometimes people are just really weird. One time I did a research interview on a data product that we were creating for teachers. And the first person I happened to talk to was a data scientist, right? He wanted the most complex data platform we could ever imagine. If I'd only listened to him and gone and built that, the whole product would have flopped. Because when we then had 5 and more conversations, I realized that was a complete outlier on the graph of wants and needs. So that you've got to weed those out. So I would say at least 5. After 5, there's a moment, I think there's a sweet spot between 5 and about 20, because you start getting diminishing returns on investment in these conversations. You start being able to predict how that conversation will go. You know, if they say this, then they're going to want that. But if they say this, then like when you feel that conviction, that's when you've kind of got enough. You could say that there's this scientific term like sigma levels in terms of research results. It's called 6 sigma. It's like validated beyond all reasonable doubt. That costs like millions to billions to do. You don't need 6 sigma validation in your company. You just need the lightning bolt moment, that revelation that says, oh my God, this is it. Then you test it, but you test it by trying to borrow other people's audiences. Because if they also get excited enough for you to talk about it with their audience, that's a really good sign. And then when you have that audience and you say, hey, here's the wait list, and you get 10 people signing up, there we go. But you need that moment of revelation. Yes, and you can absolutely build content. And Jens, you should be building content around those pain points, because otherwise your content is just, who cares? It doesn't trigger anything in anyone. And what are we creating content for? I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to be a celebrity here, guys. I'm trying to grow my business, you know? That's why we create content. Let's be real about ourselves. So yeah, Pippa, you need, it's actually more to give you conviction to go through the pain of iterating on the idea until it works. But there, I would say a minimum of 5, to the point where you can predict how those conversations go. Then a weird thing will happen. You're going to create this service. I don't want you to stop having these conversations though, because when you then create the thing, you start having new conversations with people about life after your service, and they'll reveal something new to you that you could also innovate on and add into your service, which is even more valuable or even more disruptive. So don't stop. This is why big companies get killed by smaller companies, because they stopped this process. Because big companies hate this, because this really rocks the boat. Okay. It's been my pleasure to share that with you all today. So we had a poll survey a couple of weeks ago around what other ways in which you'd be interested in my research questions. I actually did promise this the other week. I will pull them out of the book in terms of some of the ones that we use. Do you know, one of my favorite ones is at the end of a research call. It's really corny, but it seems to get people thinking about things in a different way. We have the research call, and right at the end, I say, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about this entire process or problem, what would it be? And they'll just tell you what they want you to build. And if you just listen to that, usually that's like an incredible innovation that they've been sitting on in their back pocket. And always in these conversations, round it off by saying, is there anything we haven't covered that you feel is very important? The amount of times I've done that and they bring something up where I'm like, oh my God, like we've just waited an hour because I haven't realized this big landmine that you've been covering up for me that I was about to step on. So those 2 are great. I can generate some of those research questions, Jens, and put it in the group. So yes, a few of you indicated that getting me to look at your products one-to-one would be helpful for you. So we have decided to launch power hours for people who are in the group, if you want them. So if you want an hour of my time and focus workshopping with you on your business, on getting my knowledge on solving your biggest business problem, we're launching the power hours. We're just going to charge them out at £97 per hour. And all you need, I'll put the link in the group. You just go to that link. You can book some of my time, although it is extremely limited, as a way to help you. Because I would love to help you guys scale your business even further, if I'm honest with you. I know I've had some one-to-one conversations with some of you in this group that we've created some stuff that I know you've turned around and immediately added a couple of grand to your bottom line with it. So I'd love to do that for more of you. If that's of interest, that is the link there. As always, thank you very much, guys, for, yes, Kirsty, the mum test is great. If my book, The Minimal Viable Launch, is ever considered anywhere near as good as the mum test, I've done a good job. That's the goal. I love the mum test, or, Lean is also incredible. It's all around the same ideas. Your customers have the answers you need. And if you're struggling to grow, it's because you don't understand the trigger points. I fundamentally believe that. So I will see you all next week. As always, please add all of your questions, pains, frustrations into the group. I will see if I can get you help and answers from there. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye.